Yeah, I don't know what Dad would make of this book. I was pretty honest. I think, particularly if it's someone who you disagree with, who maybe has lived a life that you would never want someone to live. One of the best ways you could do to honor that person in death is to tell their story honestly.
Mm.
So yeah, it was 21 years ago. It's funny, as a kid, my dad and I, we had this little game we would play, where he would say, "I love you," at night, and I would say, "I love you too, Dad." And he would say, he said, "I love you more than you love me," and I would say, "No, I love you more than you love me," and I just couldn't keep up with him, right? And it was such a frustration. I couldn't say how much I loved him, that changed actually. As I began to see that, I mean, he was one of the best firefighters in our city. He's kind of legendary in that respect, and I was proud of that, but I would never tell him that because he was also racist. I grew up in the States, in America, North America. And so, racism is something we all struggle with. And frankly, he didn't know he was racist, and I didn't know he was racist, and none of us knew he was racist. But when I realized it, when I saw it, I couldn't unsee it, I couldn't forgive him for it. And I decided to separate myself, not just because of that. I mean, I was getting older and traveling. I went to Japan for 5 years. And meanwhile, he got sick. He had alcoholism. He got sick. He was dying. And I wasn't sure I was going to go back. Not out of spite. I just didn't feel the connection there. And my wife, well, she wasn't my wife at the time. We had met in Japan. She's from New York. She said, "When's the last time you told your dad you love him?" I said, "Gosh, I don't even know." And she said, well, tell him. Buy an airplane ticket, go home and tell him. So I remember flying home, and this is now a few days before tonight, 21 years ago, wondering, am I going to actually tell him I love him? I arrived at the hospital bed. He was on his deathbed. And kind of through gritting teeth, as he lay there, conscious, he was there. I said, "Dad, I love you." And then spontaneously, I added something that I had never said to him before, which actually felt more authentic in that moment. And what I said was, "And I'm so proud of you."
Mm.
And what he said to me, playing that old game, he said, "Not as proud as I am of you." I think I learned a lot about Dad in writing this book. And I learned a lot about what I learned from Dad, which was he taught me through his example to stand in the heat, the hard conversations, the courageous conversations, the tough choices. He taught me to love my job. Every day he went to work, never once complained. He loved his job. I love my job. And he taught me to never, ever run away from the fire of injustice. I don't know how he taught me that, but somehow it came through. So I think, leadership work, it often involves disappointing your own people. Those are the hard ones to disappoint. The people that need to change, who you have access to, not the bad guys. They're kind of easy to disappoint or disrupt. It's your own people. And it's being willing to say to the people who love you, who care for you, who depend on you, who you depend on, whether they're parents or teachers or community folks or people in your team or your company, it's being willing to say to them, I love you. I love 99% of who we are, how we were raised, how we do our work around here. But this 1% doesn't work anymore. This 1%'s got to go. It never served the purpose, and it can't continue to stay. And for me, that's what this book represents. It was probably my hardest choice, was to be honest about some of those stories, knowing that it would be read by my own family and people I grew up with. Yeah. So, Dad, I don't know if you'd agree with this story, but that's how it's written. So.